2019 Spanish Grand Prix. How did we find that one? Just be honest, how did we find that one? Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was a bit of a snooze fest? Or were you a bit like me in the middle? Spoilers, as always, pretty obviously. It's a race review, spoilers for the Spanish Grand Prix. And in a moment, we're going to just give people a minute just to leave if they haven't seen the race yet. But I think actually there's quite a bit to talk about. Anyway, we'll start with the podium. Lewis Hamilton was your winner once again for Mercedes, making it 5 times in a row 1-2s for Mercedes. And although Saturday it was, with the qualifying report, I was a little bit downbeat. I'll hold my hands up to that. To be honest with you, you can't fault Mercedes. They are doing everything so perfect this season. It is incredible. And although, yes, you are going to have some people running to the hills, crying to the hills, complaining that Formula One's over already, I'm not quite that far gone to the dark side just yet. However, they're bossing it. There's no arguing with that. And really, it's down to Red Bull and Ferrari to get their stuff together and catch up. But yes, they smashed it. Verstappen as well, he also smashed it, ending up in P3 on the screen for the last few seconds. You would have seen the full race classification. Behind the two Mercedes, Verstappen, man, this dude is really picking up the pieces where Ferrari are failing. And we're going to talk about their unique strategy in a moment. But behind Verstappen was the two Ferraris off the podium once again. How long ago does Spain winter testing feel now? 4th for Vettel, 5th for Leclerc. Gasly holding in P6 this time out. A much stronger weekend from Pierre. Magnussen best of the rest. And I have lots to talk about Grosjean and Magnussen, which I'm sure a few of you are here for that very reason. Because yes, there will be ranting, there will be moaning, but it should be fun. It should be fun. Carlos Sainz is home Grand Prix P8, Kvyat P9, and Grosjean just holding on to that final point in P10. Albon just outside the points P11. Then the two Renaults, Ricciardo and Hülkenberg. Raikkonen, his point streak finally comes to an end. A very difficult race for Kimi Raikkonen. Racing point, Perez P15. Stroll didn't finish. Difficult weekend for them. Giovinazzi P16. And the final two runners saving my fantasy team once again is George Russell and Robert Kubica, who both technically gained positions. That's why they do so well in my fantasy team. But apart from that, a weekend to forget for Williams. Right, let's do this one a little bit differently. Let's go back to the old format where we go through the race, how it sort of unfolded, and we'll unpackage it that way. Sometimes we go through the order and talk about everyone's sort of story, but this time I think we'll unpackage the race. So lap 1, difficult start from Bottas. He's come out and said after the race there was a clutch issue. Drivers always do that, make statements like that if they haven't had the best start, and yeah, there may have been some sort of issue there, but I don't think it was a terrible start from Bottas. Traditionally at this circuit, if you're starting on the row behind, like Sebastian Vettel was, you can get a really nice toe and almost take the lead into turn 1. Fernando Alonso, back in 2013, was able to take the lead from, I believe, P5 on the grid. So, if you get it all hooked up right, Spain, this race can be decided on lap 1, and ultimately it was. Lewis Hamilton squeezing up the inside. Vettel, who'd had a mega start around the outside, he locked it up, and that ultimately hurt him, but he consequently wasn't able to squeeze through. Then when coming back into the pack, got in behind Bottas, almost hit Leclerc, his teammate. That's the second time on the first lap those two have got super close. Verstappen was able to just nick around Vettel, but it was an awesome move from Verstappen around the outside of turn 3. But as I just mentioned, Vettel on the back foot trying to fight it out with the two Mercedes. Consequently, though, that lockup he had cost him the race, caused so many issues for Ferrari in terms of strategy. In the next few weeks, I think we'll have more of a direct conversation about that, a separate video, because for me, Ferrari's biggest issue at the moment is that killer instinct. Obviously, I can't pinpoint that to one person, but it always seems that when there's a clear decision to make, and yes, I'm just some guy talking in my bedroom, I'm not a Ferrari strategic analyst, those guys are paid the big bucks for a reason. However, it always seems that they just take 2 or 3 laps longer, and those 2 or 3 laps add up. And twice in this race, they needed to do the switcheroo, and twice they just eked it out a little bit too long. When Vettel had to get back past Leclerc later on, where they did it on the circuit was a little bit strange as well through turn 4. It was all messy from Ferrari today. It was all looking so easy for Mercedes. Hamilton dominating at the front of the field, I think is a fair statement to say. Bottas behind, very easy for Mercedes. Verstappen, he was almost in a league of his own. Then the 2 Ferraris, then Gasly, then the 2 Haas cars. It was just so easy. The only real on-fight track was Sainz versus Ricciardo, but Ricciardo wasn't able to get by anyway. So that was just, it was painful to watch until we had the safety car. Lando Norris, the saviour we all needed in this race, because it was a bit of a snooze fest, a little bit stale. It was nice seeing in the first stage, it was nice seeing different strategies at play. Were some guys able to do a 1-stop? Were others trying to do a 2-stop? So it was interesting for me, something I quite enjoy actually, is strategy. I found it quite unique that Verstappen went for the soft, Vettel went for the mediums, and Leclerc went for the hard. I thought that was quite nice, and 2-stop strategy races usually do throw up unique strategies like that. So I was intrigued at that, although, you know, I'd rather see on-track overtaking. Anyway, safety car. We'll talk about the incident. Norris goes around the outside of turn 1. You can see some of the aftermath on screen now. Norris on the outside of turn 1, Stroll on the inside. The nature of the corner, if you follow the racing line, it's a little bit of a difficult place to overtake. Norris would argue Stroll shut the door, should have had more room. Stroll can easily argue he was on the racing line. So very difficult to, personally, I think, to pin the blame on anyone. Very difficult. I do think it's a racing incident. If you look at it again, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other is what I will say. But it was the saviour we needed for this race. Safety car came out. Multiple people come in for fresh tyres. It's looking spicy. Race then restarts, and it was a bit of a procession once again. Except, and here we go. The Haas boys. Grosjean, who'd done a mega job this race, considering how last year went in Spain. He was consistently, through practice, in the top 5 every single session. In the race and qualifying, 7th, clear best of the rest, a clear margin in front of Magnussen. Magnussen had the better restart. With the aid of DRS, dive bombs up the inside of Grosjean. That's a little bit extreme. They were side by side into turn 1. I'll calm down a little bit. However, similar to what happened to Norris and Stroll, Magnussen didn't leave any room, banged tyres with Grosjean, forced Grosjean to take what then became his usual route across the circuit. Grosjean damaged then on his tyre. You could see that outside of the paintwork of the tyre had just completely gone. He came on the radio complaining, obviously, that his tyres, that front right was almost a little bit like Vettel, and he just became a sitting duck. The next lap, similar sort of thing happened with Sainz. Sainz did the same sort of thing, and because of the nature of the corner, because of these wider cars over the last couple of years, it's uber difficult to squeeze 2 through there. Sainz contact with Grosjean as well. I'm screaming, rolling all over the floor. If you are new around here, I am a Grosjean fan, if you hadn't worked that out. And then every single lap, Grosjean was going back and back and back and just held on to that final point. Albon couldn't quite snatch past him in those dying laps. But Magnussen, words have been had at Haas. Steiner comes on at the end of the race, onto the radio, Magnussen, and just says, Kevin, you see me first. And I was fuming with Magnussen, to be honest with you. That's why I've taken a little while to post this review, because I had to calm down and analyse the situation once again. But I personally feel, obviously no penalties, it wasn't anything like that. But when it's your teammate, when you look at Haas last season and the fact that their pit stop mistake in Australia cost them 4th in the championship, you look this year and how even tighter the midfield is, that's a big points haul Haas have lost. Should have been 7th and 8th. 7th and 10th, that is a big drop when you look how valuable points are. and how unlikely it is that there's going to be a surprise podium, big points haul like Racing Point or Force India at the time were able to do last year, points make prizes. And it was a big missed opportunity. But I'm glad Grosjean got a point, because now this is his first point of the season. He really did need that. But if that wasn't in the race, it would have been a stale affair. And considering for me, those few laps were so tense. I was emotionally distraught is an understatement in those last few laps. I imagine for a non-fan of Grosjean, or someone who's a fan of Hamilton, Vettel, up the front, those sort of guys, found it a little bit more boring than me. But I've given the race a 6 out of 10. It was okay. It was okay is probably how I can put it. And driver of the day, I've gone with Carlos Sainz. The official vote went to Max Verstappen. However, on social media, they went for Danny Kvyat. But I think Sainz, personally for me, I think it's very close with Danny Kvyat. I just think Sainz had a lot of pressure on him this weekend at his home race, really on the back foot through qualifying. In the early stages of the race, had a really difficult start, was able to keep the master of the overtake, Daniel Ricciardo, behind. I thought that was awesome. But then, as the race got on and on, McLaren worked out a really good strategy. He was really racy, plenty of overtakes, but I've got to say, Kvyat, blimey, that overtake he did on Raikkonen, I think it was, around the outside of turn 4. Yes, I know people will say about he was on fresh tyres, better car, but crikey, that was awesome. That was great. And Kvyat definitely would have been in contention for best of the rest if they didn't make that double stack, well, calamity from Toro Rosso. So I've got to give a shout out to Kvyat, and it's very, very close between Sainz and Kvyat. But yeah, with all the pressure on Sainz's shoulders, he just nicks it. But Verstappen as well, I've put him on screen for a reason. Again, proving that he really has come of age this year. And the fact, as you're going to see in a moment, the fact he's back into third in the standings is crazy. All the talk over the winter that they'd be... I mean, look, the gap is massive to Mercedes now. That is very, very clear. But all the talk of Red Bull potentially being in the midfield, I mean, that's just vanished. That vanished after race 1 when he got on the podium. He is bossing it this year, Max Verstappen. I'm licking his rear quite a bit today, but honestly, he's doing a mega job. And whilst everyone expected Ferrari to be the top dogs, they are proving very much. And as each race goes on, they are really proving that they're going to be in a fight for second rather than first. Anyway, Monaco next, which in theory shouldn't be a Mercedes circuit. Am I trying to be too positive? Maybe, but I do love Formula 1. And I think a lot of people out there will understand it's a little bit dry at the moment, but racing, like Bahrain, hasn't been awful. Anyway, let me know in the comments below how wrong I was with Driver of the Day. Let me know who you thought was Driver of the Day in the comment section below. What did you think of the race? Let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.